I think we have Monica Holloway and Michael Price live. Hey, guys. Oh, you're just as cute as your pictures.
We're live from our living room, and we have two bunny rabbits watching us from the cage.
I love it. Oh, that's a great segue. Now, Monica wrote Cowboy and Wills. Michael is a very well-known television writer, The Simpsons, and we are talking, they are parents of a young man named Wills, who is now 15, who has autism. And the remarkable story that Monica documented in her book, Cowboy and Wills, a love story about their lives, raising Wills. And you said two bunny rabbits, animals. Big turning point. Big turning point for Wills. We just talked about the diagnosis. We just talked about his anxiety. Now, he loved animals, and both of you found that animals were really a doorway to Wills. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. He always loved animals. He, before we got Cowboy, he was into little animals. At his school, they had guinea pigs, and there was a rat that was called Red Rat Dirt.
Wills named it, of course.
Right. That he loved, and he really responded to animals always, all kinds. So all through the years, and Monica talks about it in her book, that the day that the diagnosis came down, I think one of the first things you did was you took him to the aquarium.
To the aquarium.
Yeah, we went from the therapist to Ben's fish store down the street here on Ventura and bought a 10-gallon aquarium at that point. So.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing that Catherine in the book talked about, was like fish were also a good thing to sort of help him, sort of a thing for him to look for sort of his visual training and that as well. So, but he just always responded to animals throughout his entire life. We've gone through phases of we've had, I don't know, a couple dozen or so hermit crabs that he's given all amazing names to, many hamsters, several different kinds of turtles.
I think Booner, Schooner, and False Alarm are two of the hamsters that get a lot of attention.
I love the names. Now, it's interesting because we live on a little, and I mean little, 1-acre ranch in Hidden Hills, California, and we have 3 dogs and 2.5 horses. I'll explain that because one of the horses is a miniature. So if you'd like to bring Wills over to meet Addie, Big Moon, and Minnie Moon, I'll take him for a ride on Big Moon.
There you go.
And I found, with our son, Wyatt, animals were also a big key to kind of unlocking some things with Wyatt, his love of animals. So we share that. And are you thinking about getting a puppy?
No, we got a dog. The
You
dog.
got one?
Yes, we have the horror story of the dog. The dog is away. We're saying. Yes, the dog is away right now. We're saying she's on vacazione, but she's doing intensive training with a behavior.
Okay,
person.
behavior therapy comes in handy with everybody.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
Lovely dog, but she turns into Cujo when anybody comes around. It's upsetting.
Thankfully, Cowboy was not like that. Now,
Right.
tell us when Cowboy Carol Lawrence, how did she come into your family, and how did you get that name?
Yes.
Okay. Well, when we had to move Wills from preschool, which was hard enough, but he went to the early years over in Santa Monica, and they were wonderful to him, and they gave us the big giant rabbit Ruby with the attitude, and she's in the book, but I'll leave Ruby to any of you that want to read it. She's her own character, but she came from the preschool, and then the transition from preschool to kindergarten, which we knew was going to be difficult, proved to be almost insurmountable. We were afraid. He went into a private school in the valley called the Children's Community School, and it seemed like he might not make it there. Then they were telling us, that he was doing some rocking and not reaching out to other kids, and I was very worried. And when I get worried, and I think I'm the worst. I spent more money at Petco than I have on my hair or wardrobe or anything. But so of course I went to Petco to get yet a 4th hamster. But that was not. I say in the book, that was not enough. That was not big enough for what we were facing. So Wills got in the car from kindergarten. I'd already been called that day to say that he was having a really hard time. Was very lonely and crying a lot. And I was very sad. And I just said, hey, we should get a puppy. And he said, let's go get one right now. And I'm like, not remembering that kids that little don't necessarily know you might have to wait for a puppy. And it was the last week in September. And I said, well, we have to ask Daddy. But I was saying to myself, we're getting a puppy. Michael's pretty easy to get along with, so I figured he'd be okay with it.
I was okay with it.
But what I didn't know was trying to get a puppy for Christmas, a couple of months before Christmas, a golden retriever is not the easiest thing to do.
No.
I did a lot of research, and just quickly, I made a huge mistake by going to a pet store.
Right.
And really big mistake, and ended up with Cowboy being not well when we got her, but we didn't know it at the time.
Well, yeah, they thought she had a cold and all different things. And even, by the time we realized, a few months, I guess, into having her, I mean, we were in love with her, Wills was in love with her, and there was now nothing we were going to not do.
Any animal, we would never.
Yeah, I mean.
But if an animal was sick, we would take care of the animal.
Right.
But the thing was, there's a video on my website of Wills actually getting Cowboy, of her coming down the steps, but it took him a long time to pick the name, and it was Sparky, he had Ringo and Rango, and all these things, and it turned out in his life he's often named anything that's female a male name. So I explained to him, Cowboy's great and I love it, but this is before we got her, but people might think she's a boy. And so he said that was okay. And I said, as long as that's okay with you, it's fine with us, right? You agreed?
Yeah.
And by then we'd had 3x5 cards of names all over the wall of his bedroom. So we took them all down and just left Cowboy. So we picked up Cowboy the morning we went to get her. Michael is somebody that, you guys probably know somebody like this. The minute Thanksgiving's over, Christmas carols come on.
And Carol Lawrence happened to be singing, right?
Well, there were carols. And so when he came out to go pick up Cowboy, Christmas carols were playing, and he said, I'm going to call her Cowboy Carol so people will know.
Oh, Cowboy Carol.
So that's how Carol came, and then 2 months later, go ahead.
Well, you'd think Carol came from Carol Lawrence.
Right.
Carol Lawrence, but no.
He doesn't know who that is. Well, he does now, but
Go ahead.
So then we were at the Long's drugstore over in Brentwood, and we were waiting for a prescription, and they kept saying over the loudspeaker, will Mr. Lawrence please come to the pharmacy? And Wills was getting more and more upset, and his hands were over his ears, and he said, they're going to give Mr. Lawrence's medicine away. And I said, I think they'll wait for Mr. Lawrence. And pretty soon this sort of Paul Newman-y type man in a natty coat comes up, and Wills yells, Lawrence is here! And the man just sort of did a thumbs up to Wills, So then we were heading home, and of course we had Cowboy with us, because Cowboy went everywhere. She was still a puppy, and he was in his car seat or his booster seat with Cowboy on his lap with her head out. And we pulled up into an intersection, and there were these really, tattooed, wild-looking young men, just, rock and roller types in a convertible. And this guy goes, hey, what's your dog's name? And I was like, Wills is going to fall apart. And he goes, Cowboy Carol Lawrence. And that was it. And that was her name.
That's so cute.
That is so wonderful. I wanted to know a little bit about, because how often, we don't get dads very often.
Or couples.
And especially couples together, and couples who have weathered this successfully. But this is not an easy journey for a family. But clearly you guys are still happily married. And but was this easy for you? There's one, I have it in the book here, a segment that my husband and I particularly loved. It was something that was very healing for us, where you were talking about, and I could read from it, but basically, Michael, you were away for a while working.
Yes.
And at one point, there was a conversation that you guys had about what it was like for you, Monica, when he wasn't there, and what it was like when he was there, and dealing with the fact that you were on two different pages. It's bone honest, and really, truly helped my husband and I to be able to talk about these kinds of things. But tell us about what it was like for you guys and how you weathered it.
Well, it was extremely hard, especially at first, because on top of reacting to the diagnosis and all the work that had to be done and everything that we had to do with Wills, it was a time where I had just taken a job I work for television sitcoms, and I've been very lucky for the last almost 11 years now to be on The Simpsons. But previous to that, the life of a TV writer is one where you get on a show, you hope it goes, more often than not it doesn't, it gets canceled or it ends, and then you try to get another job. So this job that came along was a really excellent opportunity, but it required me to be out of town. It was in Chicago, and the show was all being filmed in Chicago, and all of us writers and producers were required to be there, and it became this thing of me traveling back and forth every other weekend for a weekend, and Monica and Will's coming out every once in a while to spend time with us, with me there.
But I want to say, and Michael didn't just go off to Chicago, which is what I decided to believe about 3 months after he left, when I was so upset and sad and lonely, and scared, really scared. But we decided as a family that he would take the job, and James L. Brooks was producing, and Michael was his career was really getting going, and it would have been really not good for his career to have turned that opportunity down. The John Cusack show, and it didn't end up flying, but for almost 2 years, a little less than that, they worked in Chicago. And we were all going to go together, but that is literally right when Wills was finally diagnosed with autism, and they did not feel, and Jessica did not. Jessica's name is Catherine. I'm not supposed to say.
Okay.
She loves us. She'll get over that.
Right.
I do that often in an interview, but because she's so familiar.
Well, she felt it was. There's no way you can uproot him now. He was just starting his preschool.
Yeah, that stability is so important.
He just turned 3. I started the show. The time to move to Chicago was going to be the September after he had turned. So he was almost 3.5. So it was impossible for we're all going to move to Chicago. It just couldn't have happened. So that on top of that, that made it very, very difficult. And I wasn't here so often, and Monica was full on. Luckily, with our economic circumstances,
very lucky.
Monica didn't have to work outside the house. Monica could stay and just take care of Wills.
Because we had $140 after we got married. So the fact that, Michael got his first sort of really big writing job when I was in the hospital delivering Wills.
That's right.
It's just such a godsend, and I say this to families all the time, and it just breaks my heart, and that's why we work so hard for organizations that work toward families getting services. All of our charities involve giving money and fundraising to help other families that weren't able to do what we were able to do, which is hire people we needed.
Obviously, that's what I do as executive director of ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today, as we raise funds for families that cannot access or afford treatment, which is unfortunately the large majority of them. And as you know, the strain on a family, Shanon and I talk about this all the time on this show. The strain on a family is overwhelming. And when you combine the financial strains, we all know the cost of caring for a child with autism and how extraordinary it can be. So, thankfully you were able to not have some of those strains. But
you were away, and which became its own constraint, right?
Absolutely. It was, I was not only away, but working. The hours were extreme, and so I would come home on the weekends. We would finish taping a show in Chicago on Friday night, and I'd be on the first plane, leaving Chicago at around 5 a.m. on Saturday.
Every other week.
To get here to LA around 9. And so I was tired, over the weekend, and then I'd leave on the red eye on Sunday night and do it all over again. So it was hard enough for me, but it was triply hard for Monica, because she was full on with
I'm not sure that it was triply hard. I want to say something about fear and shame. You don't want to have any shame around a diagnosis or a child,
right?
And we finally admitted that we were scared, really scared. Each of us were scared in different ways.
Yeah.
I was scared in the way that you go and you research everything and you turn over every stone, and you're hyper and you don't. Michael was scared in a way that he sort of, if you don't mind my saying, just gets very quiet.
Yes.
Doesn't become very emotional. And
you mean he's male?
Yeah, he's male and you're female. Autism warrior mom and typical dad.
Yeah, there we go.
And my job, the way I reacted, I think, was often to be the sort of guy that's like, everything's going to be all right, and sort of make, which didn't help at all.
And it was not all right.
Did not help at all.
It was not all right.
I can say that. It was not helpful.
But you got through it.
Well,
did.
we had to get a therapist. I mean, when he came back, I really just wanted him to get an apartment because I had done it on my own. I saw that I could, and in some ways, it was easier for me to know that the help wasn't coming.
Right.
Like I did it well. I feel like, and I also felt like I found my stride, and I thought maybe Michael wasn't going to be able to come around with the diagnosis. It was that hard for you, and I think it's hard for a lot of men and
a lot of couples.
All of us.
Yeah.
But hey,
But you guys, we don't have enough time, or I would read this excerpt, but you talk about it. You guys communicated, and you said, I'm afraid, and I feel like you're on a different page, and you said, I'm scared, and you both said you were sorry, and, so I think so important that you talked about it, and you writing it made it possible for my husband and I to talk about it. But, Michael, you did come around. What was that like?
It felt great. It felt, well, first of all, this job in Chicago, ended. I was sorry that the show didn't make it, but then I knew I had a job waiting for me here at The Simpsons, so I was able to come home and be home. And I think it took a lot for me, that's sort of been the story of my life, is sort of learning how to express emotions and get in touch with feelings. And it's okay to say things that are scary or that are not the best, not everything has to be cheerful all the time. And that was a real difficult time for me to do that. And Monica, thank God, stayed there. And
I was pretty mad, but
she was.
Yeah, that honesty.
We were disappointed in each other, and that was hard.
Yeah.
Right. But that honesty is so important for other men, other fathers of children with autism to hear, because there is a huge disappointment. There is that moment of, maybe my kid's not going to be, the Little League star, and maybe my kid's not going to go play with the majors one day. Yeah. That's a huge disappointment. And for other dads to hear that, thank you for your honesty. It's
Absolutely.
important.
I mean, I remember the exact moment. It was very early, and this is way before this, but it was very early when we first started to see Will's therapist, and she said, "Well, we had moved into our house we were living in now around that same time as well. So, she said, well, I think Will's may have a problem with transitions, and I remember saying in the office, saying to both of them, to Monica and Catherine, saying, well, we'll move to the new house, and I think maybe in like a couple of weeks, then I think we'll all be good.
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to come here anymore.
Oh, bless your heart.
They looked at me like, oh my God, you've got a lot of waking up to do. that was my mindset, and it's exactly everything you just said is true.
Well, back to, I'm sorry, Monica, go ahead.
Oh, just that when he started opening up to Will's and being vulnerable with Will's, and there were, I don't think I had really seen you cry hardly at all. He sat down with Will's in the family room and started to cry when he realized all the things that Will's could do that he'd missed.
Yeah.
And we'd been to Chicago and everything, but I mean, all the things that Will's had set up in the house for himself, and he just started to cry so hard, and Will's could see that, and I think there was an opening then, and I don't think these two have ever stopped just getting closer and closer and closer, because from then on, Will's was on your shoulders and back. He was like a rhesus monkey on you.
So what's interesting, which made the whole Chicago experience, bittersweet, is that he loves Chicago.
He took Chicago by storm.
And his sort of, in terms of Asperger's, his sort of area of interest has always been trains and transportation. So going to Chicago is like his dream place, because we'll just go together for a weekend, and we get off the plane, we take the subway to our hotel, we put our bags down, run out, and just hop on the L and just ride it all day long.
That's great.
It's so fun. So that was a place where he sort of came into himself as well. There's this really wonderful story of me holding him in his arms, in my arms, and saying, well, we got to get back to where, the apartment where Monty is. And he literally, like, on Michigan Avenue, like, held his hand up and, like, hailed a taxi cab.
That's great.
He's really at home in cities and that kind of thing. And
he loves New York. Yeah. He loves Chicago. He loves. It's interesting.
Tell us about Will's today and what he's up to.
Well,
go. It's great.
He is doing so well. The story of his life, in so many ways too, is sort of coming up against a challenge or a roadblock, and then us combination of us and him thinking maybe he can't do it, and then him just exploding through it. So
like the way he walked in the book, he wouldn't walk. Then he just walks up and gets himself practically a sandwich. He's like, he's same with the way he swam. He just watches and then he does it.
He has a moment, a while there of sort of not knowing, and then just sort of finding something within himself to just go ahead and do it. So you mentioned baseball. That I'm a huge baseball fan, and I'd always hoped that he would be too. And he really kind of was, kind of wasn't. And then through getting a Wii system, we started playing the Wii version of baseball. And he loved that so much because he really got excited on the idea of like hitting home runs, on the Wii, that he said, let's go out and all that stuff you've been trying all these years, like throwing a ball to me, I'm sort of into it now. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago. And we started going out to the park, and I would just sort of pitch a few things to him, and he was very rusty. He missed it 100 times in a row. And then he suddenly, just like all those other things, he just got really, really good at it. And now baseball is almost taken over from trains as his super area.
I hope that happens with us. I hope that happens with Wyatt, because I feel like we have so many commonalities as parents of these children. Yeah. But my son, I thought maybe, is he still going to be into Thomas the Tank Engine when other kids are, at the drinking age?
He won't be. But it doesn't help for somebody else to tell you. But he won't be.
But then Will's two years ago, I guess now, we learned of a little league in our area, Granada Hills, that we'd heard had a challenger division, which is for kids who have special needs or some kind of thing like that. And we said, well, let's see if he wants to try it. We went out there for the sign up. They go, we no longer have the challenger league, but you can still try out just regular. We're like, well, let's give it a shot.
We've never been so sweaty.
We've never been to this place before. It was a total new experience. He went to the tryout. He took his swings, and through just amazing grace, we got this incredible guy named Steve to be his coach, who picked him for his team. He now is like one of the mainstays of this league. He's now played for 3 years.
With the full inclusion, and this is not a special league.
No, it's a regular.
Wow.
He had a grand slam his first year. Then all the kids, it was like you were there with the disbelief. They were yelling, "Dog pile on Wills," and everybody's like, "No!" But they did. And underneath was this kid just like beaming and in shock and so happy. And it's a special. I have to give a shout out to Granada Hills Little League, because their families are so kind and sweet. They have bent over backwards to make sure that we're comfortable and that Wills does well. And we keep saying over and over, treat him like the rest of the kids. That's what you can do for Wills. Treat him like everybody else.
That's great.
Once again, that inclusion, that getting our kids around typical kids, so important. So what grade is Wills in now?
He's about to start 9th grade in September.
Okay. And is he...
For the first time.
Mainstreamed.
He'll be mainstreamed.
Okay. Well, my face hurts from smiling so much. You guys have been absolutely wonderful.
I know, and I wanted to get back to Cowboy, but, we should just let people read the book.
Yes.
And just one final question. How did Cowboy change your lives and Will's life?
I think it's... I feel like Will's has changed me. You guys know, and anybody that has autism in their family knows, and but for what it is for you. But when I think of the person I was before I had Wills, and how worried I was that I wasn't going to be able to do enough for Wills, or I wasn't smart enough to have Wills and know what to do, I didn't have to do any of that, because he taught me to be a more patient person, a kinder person. I had a lot of rage from my childhood, and all that drained away, because what mattered was this moment and that moment and that moment. And watching him care for Cowboy as she got sicker, we should say Cowboy ended up with canine lupus, which we've never heard. And I said, only I would give an autistic child a dog with cancer. It's like, what?
So there's not enough challenges, right, Monica?
I believe it, but what happened was his empathy really started to show, because he made her a pillow out of his old pajama tops that he tore out, and he stuffed it with paper towel, and he made her a dog house that he made when she was little out of our refrigerator box. But he kept it in the garage, and when she was sick, he brought it back out, and he put little fluffy colored balls all over it, and that bed he made inside where she slept when she was literally dying, and he was with her the day that she died. I wasn't going to send him to school the next day, but his therapist said, you know what, don't keep him home and tell him to be isolated. Her big thing with me was getting out in the world, and my big thing was isolate, protect, isolate. And she's like, he's got to go to those birthday parties, he's got to go to school. So I sent him to school the next day, and all the kids knew Cowboy. I'm trying to hurry because I know we're running out of time. I left him at school all day long. I was so sad and worried about him. And when I went to pick him up, he came out of the classroom, and for the first time ever in his life, he was draped by children that he knew and loved. Kindergarten, they were all crying, and he was beaming. And I would say that her gift to him, because the teacher was so wonderful at Children's Community School, Corinne, that she had set them in a circle and said, let's all go around and talk about what we liked about Cowboy or what we didn't like about Cowboy, and then let's talk about other losses that we've had. So he heard about people losing grandparents, about kitten dying, about that people have lost.
Yeah.
And he felt so strengthened by that. And I would say that is the day. I say it, and it's hard to believe, but I think we agree it's true, that he turned to people. He turned to people.
That's amazing. She was an opening there. So what, you all are delightful. As Shanon said, our mouths are hurting from laughing. What a great story. Your parenting, your journey, your journey with Cowboy and your son Wills. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's such a pleasure.
And we'll look forward to talking to you guys again sometime in the future. We hope you'll come back.
Great. Anytime.
That would be wonderful.
All right, thank you so much. And everyone should get Cowboy
and Wills. It's a great love story.
You will laugh.
And it's out in paperback now.
Yes, love that. Thank you so much, you guys.
All right.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. And it's time for us to say goodbye, isn't it?
We're here in the last